Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story takes place in a crowded furniture store where one woman's lack of awareness turned a simple elevator wait into a public humiliation. All because she couldn't stop to think or ask before shouting. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with a turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. "Are you done with that?" said the owner of the wheelchair. This was several years ago, and honestly, it still sticks with me because of how suddenly and loudly it all went down. I have a health condition that flares up unpredictably, and when it does, I need mobility assistance. Sometimes a walker, sometimes a wheelchair. It's not new to me. I'm used to people staring like they're trying to solve a math equation, or those passive-aggressive comments like, "You don't look like you need that," or, "But you look so young and healthy," as if chronic illness hands out name tags. Anyway, my husband and I decided to check out this furniture store during its grand opening week, which in hindsight might not have been the best timing because the place was absolutely packed. Wall-to-wall people, families dragging kids around, employees rushing everywhere, full chaos. My husband was pushing me in my wheelchair because it was one of those flare-up days where walking more than a few steps wasn't happening. We finally made our way toward the elevator because, of course, all the showrooms were on split levels, and going up and down stairs wasn't even an option for me that day. There was a line for the elevator, no surprise there, so we pulled in behind a bunch of other people and waited like everyone else. That's when the moment happened. This older woman in front of us spun around and looked straight down at me like I'd personally offended her existence. No greeting, no context, no hesitation. Just full volume, full attitude in front of what felt like half the store. "Are you about done with that?" Not "excuse me," not "may I ask," not even "hey, can we talk really quick?" It was the tone someone uses when you're hogging a public bathroom stall while they're dancing outside the door. Except this was a mobility device I owned, being pushed by my husband, and I was literally just existing in line. All the noise from the store didn't even soften how loud she said it. Heads turned. Even my husband paused because he thought he misheard her. I just stared at her for a second because I needed to figure out whether she very seriously thought she had just asked me to hurry up with my own wheelchair. Yep, she had, and she was dead serious about it. So I said, as calmly and firmly as I could without sounding angry, "Ma'am, this is my wheelchair. I own it." Her face, she went from righteous indignation to, "Oh." Not embarrassed enough to apologize, but definitely realizing she had just shouted the world's dumbest assumption in public. She clamped her mouth shut. Nothing. No apology. No explanation. Just awkward silence. And the best part, she still had to stand there with her little entourage while we all continued waiting for the elevator. No dramatic exit, no saving face, just vibes of, "I wish I could evaporate." While we were waiting, I noticed the elderly woman in their group, clearly someone who did need mobility assistance. That's when I put the pieces together. The lady must have assumed I had grabbed one of the store's wheelchairs and she wanted it for her older family member. Fair enough. I get that caregiving is stressful and crowded environments make everything harder. But that's what blew my mind. If she had just asked me politely, "Hey, where did you find that wheelchair?" I would have happily told her. Instead, she made it this aggressive public accusation. Like she'd caught me joyriding on something I wasn't entitled to. People forget that disabled people come in all shapes, ages, and appearances. They forget that someone can be in a wheelchair one day and walking the next. They forget that not all disabilities are visible, and some people are so wrapped in their own assumptions that they'd rather shame a stranger than ask a simple question. The elevator finally came, and when the doors opened, she practically guided her elderly family member in like her life depended on it. No goodbye, no eye contact, just hustling away from the scene she created. I rolled in behind her, my husband pushing me, and the whole ride up, I couldn't help thinking, if people would just talk like humans instead of barking demands, half these weird little confrontations wouldn't even happen. But nope, some folks choose chaos every time. It's exhausting that people still police disability based on how someone looks. Stories like this are a stark reminder that for many people, accessibility isn't just about ramps and elevators. It's about being allowed to exist in public without having to constantly defend your right to be there. And our second story. My downstairs neighbor tried to ban me from using my own faucet. So now I use it with petty joy. I live in the upper unit of a stacked duplex, and we've only been here a short time, but long enough to learn that the downstairs neighbor is a lot. From day one, she's been incredibly rude to both me and my boyfriend, acting like our very existence above her is some kind of personal attack. According to her, we're supposed to completely rearrange our lives and the entire layout of our apartment to suit her extremely delicate preferences. We cannot walk around after a certain hour. We cannot talk to each other. We cannot wash dishes, shower, use the bathroom, or do literally anything a normal human being does inside their home. Every single ordinary sound is disturbing her. And instead of just being annoyed like a normal person, she takes it out on us, yelling through the floor, banging doors, slamming cabinets, huffing and stomping around dramatically like she's the victim of some targeted acoustic harassment campaign. One of her biggest complaints is laundry. We work full-time, so naturally we do laundry between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m., the only window we actually have. She's told us more than once that those hours are unreasonable and inconsiderate, as if she gets to assign us a chore schedule we never agreed to. But the comment that has permanently stuck with me was this one. She actually came upstairs to tell me, when you're using your kitchen faucet, could you please turn it off slowly? When you turn it off too fast, it makes a popping sound in my sink, and it scares me. That was the moment something inside me just snapped into place, not in an angry way, in a petty way. Because now, I suddenly love washing dishes. I've never taken so much joy in using a faucet in my life. I'll slam it off like I'm ringing the world's angriest dinner bell. Hard, fast, and random. Just enough to keep her guessing. I'll walk away quietly afterward and wait. Just wait. And like clockwork, I hear it. The faint but unmistakable groan from below. It's honestly the most lukewarm revenge imaginable. But every time I do it, I smile a little. She wanted to micromanage our entire existence. Now she gets a tiny pop of faucet-induced karma whenever I'm in the mood. And I've never looked forward to doing the dishes more. Let's be clear, this is the most harmless, lukewarm, beautifully benign revenge imaginable. She's not damaging property. She's not blasting music at 3 a.m. She's just using her faucet with feeling. And our next story. He offered me a car I couldn't take home. I gave him the punctuality he earned. So I finally hit the milestone I'd been grinding toward for years. I got my journeyman painter letter. Anyone who's ever been an apprentice knows what a big deal that is. Suddenly, you're not the site errand runner anymore. You're not the guy cleaning everyone's brushes or sweeping floors while the real work happens above your pay grade. You're an actual tradesman now, a professional. And with that shiny new status, I was expecting the traditional rite of passage, a company vehicle, or at least consistent access to one, because if there's anything worse than doing backbreaking work in all kinds of weather, it's adding a 2-hour round trip and a 15-year-old rust bucket to the mix. So about a week after I got certified, my boss calls me into his office. He's smiling, which is usually a bad sign, and I'm already imagining the keys dropping into my hand like I've just been knighted by the queen. Instead, he hits me with this. We just got another car in for the fleet. It's going to be a pool vehicle, but since you're the newest journeyman and you've got the longest commute, you can pretty much use it whenever no one else needs it. So not quite the dream scenario, but it was better than nothing. At least that's what I thought. Then I asked the obvious question. Cool, can I take it home at night? His smile didn't even flicker. Oh no, it stays at the yard. Company rules. I sat there for a second, processing the absolute stupidity of that. For me to use this so-called privilege, I would have to 1. Wake up earlier, 2. Drive past the yard, 3. Go get the car, 4. Drive back toward the job site, 5. Arrive later than the rest of the crew. And for what? So the company can keep the vehicle tucked in like a toddler at bedtime? Still, I nodded. Got it. Yard only. If that's the game you wanted to play, fine. I could play that game. The next morning, I showed up at the yard at exactly 7 a.m., the official start of my shift, not a minute earlier. Clocked in, grabbed the keys, and drove to the site. I rolled in at about 7:45 because, shocker, detouring to the yard burns time. At 4 p.m. sharp, I packed up, drove the car back to the yard, clocked out, and left. Perfect little union-friendly 8-hour day. Day after day, I did the exact same thing. Perfectly by the book. Painfully by the book. By day 3, the site foreman kept giving me that "you good" look. By day 4, the morning crew had clearly noticed, and by day 5, well, my boss noticed. He calls me into his office first thing Friday. I walk in, and there's a write-up already filled out, sitting on his desk like a sad little prop. He says, "You've been late every day this week." I said, "No, I've been at work at 7 a.m. every day, right on time. You're supposed to be on site at 7. "Oh," I said, nodding slowly, "but the pool car stays at the yard. I can't magically teleport it to the job site, and union rules say when I'm driving a company vehicle, I'm on company time, meaning 7 a.m. at the yard, 4 p.m. back at the yard. That's exactly what I've been doing." He opened his mouth to argue, then paused. You could almost hear the gears grinding because he knew I was right. If he pushed the issue, I could file a grievance so fast the paper would still be warm when it hit HR's desk, and the union rep would back me to the moon and back. He stared at me, I stared at him. And I swear I watched the exact moment he realized he'd outsmarted himself. Finally, he sighed and said, "I'll pick you up tomorrow at 6:15. I smiled, the kind of smile you save for very special moments. "Perfect," I said. Amazing how quickly the rules change when the person in charge has to follow them too. Your boss really tried to invent a new kind of inefficiency. He took something simple, give the hardworking journeyman a company car, and turned it into a logistical maze only he could be confused enough to create. And then he acted shocked when you followed the rules exactly as written. And our last story. The neighbor who tried to steal our land and got evicted. I've lived in Milton Keynes for 13 years, settled into a quiet, semi-detached neighborhood where everyone mostly keeps to themselves. It was peaceful, predictable, and uneventful until 2020, when the woman next door moved in and immediately broke that rhythm. At first, we gave her the benefit of the doubt, assuming things would smooth out over time. Instead, the behavior escalated gradually and consistently, beginning with petty acts like throwing an old, soaking Amazon box onto our side of the property and only removing it once she overheard us discussing installing a Ring doorbell because of tire-popping incidents in the area. 2 weeks ago, on August 10th, things shifted from annoying to concerning. We saw her and 2 of her friends trimming hedges owned by the council, specifically the ones in front of our home. It struck us as odd, but we assumed they were simply trying to improve visibility. However, only an hour later, she stood near our driveway with 2 other neighbors and loudly announced that she intended to knock down the back stairs near her garden, build a ramp for her mobility scooter, and begin walking through our property every day as her new route. The stairs she wanted to modify were part of a designated fire exit pathway, not a personal walkway, and she had no right to use our boundary as her daily commute. When we asked her for council permission or any documentation at all, her story changed repeatedly within minutes. First, she claimed she had full approval. Then she said the documents were on her phone. Finally, she snapped that she didn't need to show us anything and could build whatever she wanted. Her 2 friends immediately escalated, verbally harassing my mother and using racially abusive language toward both of us. They insisted we should leave the area while claiming my father could stay because they believed he was appropriate for the neighborhood. We reported the entire incident to the council, but no action was taken. On August 22nd, matters escalated again. While I was home and my parents were out, I saw a man lingering suspiciously by our hedge. He walked back and forth, measuring the area and speaking on the phone, staying far too long for it to be casual. The second my next-door neighbor stepped outside, he left abruptly. Later, another neighbor informed us that the man was a builder hired by the woman next door and that she had intentionally waited for my parents to leave before sending him in. It became clear that she planned to begin construction whether she had permission or not. At that point, we filed a police report with 101, contacted her landlord, and called the council for a 3rd time. The stress of the situation began weighing heavily on my father, who suffers from heart problems. With the neighbor emboldened by her 2 supporters, the racial abuse, and the possibility of unauthorized construction, we were mentally exhausted and worried something irreversible might happen. The tension in the house was constant, and every noise outside made us jump. Then everything changed. 2 weeks later, the builder returned for a second assessment, and a neighbor captured the entire interaction from their upstairs window. The footage showed the neighbor instructing him to dig into land that was unmistakably outside her boundary line. Worse, she seemed to brag openly about wanting us gone so she could extend her access, making it clear her intentions were not simply about mobility, but about exerting control. The video was forwarded directly to her landlord and the council. The reaction was immediate. The council confirmed she had never filed for any planning permission. Her landlord discovered she had violated multiple lease terms, including harassment and attempted unauthorized structural changes. With the video evidence, the police reopened the case, this time including racial harassment, trespassing, and attempted illegal construction. A council enforcement officer and 3 police officers arrived at her house, and although we couldn't hear the entire exchange, we saw her shouting and denying everything while trying to blame everyone around her. That same day, she received a formal harassment warning, and the council issued a stop work notice preventing any building activity. 2 weeks later, her landlord served her with an eviction notice due to repeated breaches of contract, harassment of neighbors, and the attempted use of property she did not own. She fought the eviction, but the evidence was overwhelming. As if that were not enough, during her final week in the house, she became involved in another confrontation with a different neighbor and threatened them. This time, the police arrested her, sealing the landlord's case and finalizing the eviction. Within a month, she was gone. The 2 neighbors who had supported her became noticeably silent, and for the first time in months, the street felt normal again. My parents finally relaxed, and the constant fear around the property faded. From the moment she left, the entire atmosphere of the neighborhood shifted back to the peaceful place it had once been. It's deeply telling that her final undoing came not just from harassing your family, but from turning on another neighbor. People like this cannot help themselves. Their aggression always expands until it meets a wall. In this case, that wall was a community that refused to be bullied, a legal system that eventually functioned as it should, and a family that held its ground with immense dignity and strength. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.